Well, first let me take this opportunity to thank all of you for coming today, and it's really my pleasure to introduce John Johnson as our Interim Athletics Director. As you may all well be aware, John serves at WSU, Senior Associate Director of Athletics. He's been at Washington State University for 14 years. He's really well connected with departments across campus, and this last year, at the request of then Athletic Director Bill Moose, John was on the President's Cabinet and really involved in an integral way in a lot of the things happening both in athletics and at the university. He'll formally assume the role of Interim Athletics Director on October 18th. He's a highly respected leader nationally. He served as Athletic Director at Eastern Washington University and Weber State University in Ogden, Utah. He's really the perfect person, we feel, to continue the positive momentum with WU Athletics at this time. We've also formed a search committee to search for our next permanent athletic director. That includes myself as chair, Jack Thompson, the throw-in Samoan, alumnus class of 1978, and WSU quarterback from 1975 to 1978. June Daughtery, our women's basketball coach. Gary Schneidmiller, an alumnus and owner of Caldwell Banker Schneidmiller Realty. Abu Kamara, who's chair of the Student Athlete Advisory Committee and a track student athlete. Nancy Swanger, who's our faculty athletics representative, associate dean and director, WSU School of Hospitality Management, and in the Carson College of Business. And finally, Greg Rankich, who is an alumnus class of 1994, chief executive officer and president of Extreme Consulting. So we announced yesterday the search committee. I know many of you saw that. Today, we had several meetings. We met with the staff as a whole. We met with the senior leadership team in WSU Athletics, and then I spent about an hour with our head coaches and a little over an hour with Coach Leach, and asked their input on what types of things they think would be important for us for our next athletic director. So we've also, as you all have probably seen, have launched a public website that folks can go on to and also give suggestions, comments, things as we do this search for our next athletic director. So we want to encourage the Coug Nation to be involved and engaged at what we think is really an incredible opportunity for our next athletic director here at Washington State University. So with that concludes the statement I want to make, and really what I want to spend the time doing is responding to questions that you all have about anything happening at WSU, athletics, AD search, and John's also available to answer questions as appropriate. So with that, let's open up the floor, and Phil, we can go from there.
I guess, Kirk, when did you learn about Bill Moose's departure? Did you kind of learn when all of us learned?
I did. So interestingly, we were doing a fundraising visit to Denver, Colorado on Saturday, and met with a bunch of our donors, got up Sunday morning, and I flew back into Seattle, turned on my phone, and it kind of blew up, and that's when I learned that Bill was going to depart for Nebraska. I learned like everybody else did, and in my conversations with Bill afterwards, he just said University of Nebraska was really said it was important that it be kept completely confidential, and I think, as you all know, all of us found out the same time and virtually the same way. I will say, though, in the world of athletics, this is not that uncommon, and it was not a personal slight or anything like that. It was just sometimes these things are kept confidential until the very last minute, and that's just the way it worked. And I appreciate everything Bill's done for Washington State University athletics, and wish him the best at the University of Nebraska. He's going to do a great job there.
There were some conflicting reports that Moose had asked for a contract extension. Did those talks happen at all with you guys?
You know, Bill and I met about every 2 weeks, and we talked about a lot of stuff related to athletics. And, you know, at this particular point, I've seen the different reports that there was those conversations, there wasn't. We're just going to look forward. We're going to worry about finding the next athletic director, and I'm just not going to go back and worry about some of those particular things out there. Like I said, I wish Bill the best of success in Nebraska. He did a lot for us here, and I think we had a really good working relationship during his tenure as AD, and very helpful to me as a new president coming from outside the state of Washington.
Was the news so much of a shocker that obvious candidates to replace him don't necessarily spring to mind?
It was certainly a significant surprise, and people can wonder, why did it take you 24 hours to appoint an interim athletic director, a search committee? Why did it take us 3 or 4 hours to put a statement out from the university about it? And it was because we just simply weren't thinking about doing an athletic director search, and so it did catch us by surprise. So are there obvious candidates out there? I think there's a lot of folks with ties to the Pacific Northwest, their alumni. There's already been, I've talked to several sitting athletic directors who I've just worked with in the past. They've already got inquiries from other people about the AD job here. So I think we're going to generate a lot of interest. And I would say that if you think about it, we're a Power 5 program. There's very few of those. We have a lot of on-the-field success and positive momentum right now. If you look at it, it's really a great time to be coming in here as an athletic director. So I think we're going to be amazed at the caliber and quality of men and women that are going to be interested in being our next athletic director.
Mr. Johnson, can you speak to what you're looking forward to taking over? Obviously, a quick transition is about to take place, and what you hope for.
Well, first off, I'm privileged to have the opportunity and appreciate the president for giving it to me. Most importantly, however, we have a terrific staff and a top-notch staff. Bill would often say, and we all agree, that we have as good a staff as there is in the United States. And with that great leadership, Bill let us run our areas. The senior staff, our staff underneath do a great job. And so therefore, taking over the job, it's really pretty easy. And we're going to continue and maintain the momentum that we have. We've got a blueprint that we're following, and we're going to continue that as we go forward.
As your role as acting interim, are you looking forward to potentially becoming a candidate to be the permanent?
I will not be a candidate in taking the interim. I won't be a candidate for obvious reasons. Typically in searches, whether it be coaches or other administrators, even outside of athletics, if the interim person is eligible, other folks may not apply, and I think that's very important. And I care about Washington State very much. Been a good part of a great part of my life and my professional life. Grew up in Spokane, grew up a Cougar fan, and I really understand that, and a chance to help this process in my way as interim athletic director and working with the other senior associates to maintain the momentum. I'm looking forward to it, and we'll move the program forward as best we can during this time.
You speak on the diverse panel you guys have created, and why you guys are excited for this panel?
The search committee?
The search committee.
Yeah. I wanted people that had some long-term history with WSU on that particular search committee. I wanted a couple people that are major benefactors to Washington State University and to WSU athletics on there. We wanted to make sure that we had a sitting coach. I may think I know as president what I'd like to see in athletic director, but our coaches, it's a very, very important position to them to make sure it's somebody that's going to support them. And the student-athlete voice must be in the room. And so the Student-Athlete Advisory Committee president just makes a logical choice of a student-athlete to have. And it also, if you look, we've got some folks with some strong football background, our women's basketball coach, a track and field athlete. We just have a diversity of different voices in that room that I think will help us make a really, really good decision. The athletic director holds a title like a vice president at the university, so we also need faculty interaction with who the new AD will be, and that's really where Nancy Swanger comes in. So, but confidentiality is incredibly important in these athletic director searches or a coaching search. And the smaller the group that you have, it really helps you with confidentiality. And you can look at a group, no matter what size it is, and say, what about this constituent, or what about another person from here? You can always make it bigger. But I think this is I like the group. It's a great size. I think they're going to get along very well. And at the end of the day, we need a lot of voices in the room. And I think we'll come to consensus and say, this is the person we need as our next AD at Washington State University.
Given those conversations that you've had, your experience here, your time with Bill, what are the characteristics you want to see in the next athletic director that you'll be looking for?
Absolutely. Again and again today, and I think Coach Leach talked about this as well, integrity is really important. Somebody that's got the coaches' backs and will support them when they need support. That was number one. Number two, I don't think this is an athletic director job that we need somebody to learn on the fly. I think we need somebody who's going to be able to come in and be experienced. And as a colleague president of mine said, when you sort of move from one presidency to the other, you don't learn to be a president, you have to learn the institution. You're not trying to learn both at the same time. So I just want to make sure our AD comes in as somebody with some real experience. And third, I want to bring in somebody that can take our fundraising success that we've had and really kind of take it to the next level. We've had some notable achievements in fundraising under Bill's tenure as our athletic director. But if we look out there nationally, we're never at a point that we can say we don't need these facilities, we don't need to do these things for our student athletes. So resources are continue to be important, and I want to find somebody that can continue that upward trajectory, and if it will, even accelerate it quite a bit from where we are now.
You obviously know the presence that Coach Leach has on this campus. I'm sure you've heard the grumblings or the concern after Sunday's news, given the connection and relationship that he had with Bill, and Bill obviously bringing him here. How much does that play into this decision and this process? Just finding somebody that can maintain that type of relationship with somebody like Mike Leach, who obviously is, the building we're in today, instrumental person on this campus and within WSU athletics.
Yeah, so interestingly, right before this, I spent an hour and 15 minutes with Coach Leach, and we talked about a lot. As you know, any conversation with Coach Leach has a broad span of topics. So, but we talked, and I was very upfront. We love him being here. He's done a lot for Washington State University, and we're committed to do what is needed to keep him as our football coach. Mike talked a lot yesterday about he has no desire to go anywhere else. He likes being here. Clearly, we want our next athletic director to be somebody who's going to continue to build around our football program and all of our other sports. And my expectation is we're going to bring in somebody that will have a great working relationship with Mike. One piece of advice I got earlier in my career as a new president was you should always have good personal relationships with your football coach, your men's basketball coach. And the conversation I had with Mike today is probably like 5 or 6 others. We talked a lot about what we need to do to continue our success here in football, what I can be doing as president. And he ends every conversation, though, the same way. He says, Kirk, if there's ever anything I can do to help Washington State University, please let me know what that is. And that's not an insincere type of thing. We have this communication a lot, and he really is curious. And we talked about the university budget, and he looked at some different things about it. So Mike's a bright guy, wants to see the university be successful, and sees football as part of it.
Do you have a timeline?
On the search?
Yes.
There's some state laws about how long it takes us to hire a search firm. And so we have to abide by those. So it's going to take us several weeks before we're able to actually select a search firm. I would say my expectation would be somewhere around February 1 to have our new athletic director in place.
How open will the search be?
We are going to look nationally for the absolute very best candidates, whether they're in our backyard or whether they're somewhere else. It doesn't make any difference. So there's no hand-selected set of 2 or 3 people that we're going to consider, and we want to throw a broad net out there. We want to get candidates that come from a variety of different backgrounds. We're going to make sure we have a diverse pool from the perspective of seeking women and underrepresented minority candidates as well. So that's the reason we're going to spend the time. Is you could do it quick, but I want to make sure that we spend the time to do it right, and that's going to be critical for us.
So you guys will be looking at in-house candidates as well as out-of-house candidates too?
We at this particular point, we're not going to restrict it one way or another. We want the absolute very best person. And if you're an in-house candidate or internal candidate or somebody that has close ties to WSU now, those individuals will have to compete with candidates elsewhere. And at the end of the day, you want to pick the person that we said this is the right person for AD at this particular time.
With the search committee, the inclusion of students has occasionally hit or miss in the past with different, for your position, I believe there were students on that committee when they were searching for the next president. Right. Is there going to be an inclusion of some student leaders in the future, or was that not something that's going to be taking place?
The president of SAC is our student leader that we elected to place on there because we felt we needed a student athlete and we needed a leader. That person is actually elected by their peers to serve in that particular role and position. One of the things that we are going to be organizing is a series of kind of listening sessions. And I've already talked to Jordan Frost about let's get some student leaders together. And I would like to have some sessions where we're asking our student leadership in a broad sense across WSU, what do you hope to see in the next athletic director? What do you think are some key characteristics and things that are important? This is really going to be critical for us because there's things like stadium access and mascots and these different types of things that have come up from the students. And there's some, we're going to need our next athletic director to be actively engaged with our student body as a whole. And so there'll be opportunities to hear those things. And if you ask, when is it? Things have been pretty quick over the last 48 hours. We have not set when those are going to be, but we'll certainly put those out, and we're going to welcome people's comments at those sessions.
You said you talked to Coach Kent. He's a well-renowned name amongst the college basketball lingo. What did he say? What was that conversation like?
Right. So interestingly, Ernie's on a recruiting trip right now, and the message I got from him is he said, Kirk, I can stop everything, get on a plane, I can be back in time for the meetings. And I said, you need to do what you need to do your recruiting, and we'll sit down one-on-one as soon as you get back, and we have some time because I want to hear Coach Kent's perspectives on what types of things we need to be thinking about with our next AD. So I'll wind up probably by the end of it sitting down with each coach individually and having some conversations about what can we do to maintain our momentum. And I think that's a critical thing that I heard all day today is, we'll go find somebody really good, but we can't take a step back. We've really taken a step forward in terms of facilities and on-the-field performance, and we need to continue to do that.
John, we've obviously got an idea of some of the successes under Bill, especially these last few years. From your perspective, working closely with them, what are some areas that you in the interim and then long-term with the next AD will have to address?
Well, certainly one is to continue to develop funding for our scholarships. Our goal all along when Bill came and prior to was, hey, we need to fund our scholarships with donations. Right now, we use some of our other revenues to do that. So certainly funding for scholarships, then also facilities. We have a couple of very prominent facilities that we're getting close. A baseball clubhouse, a renovation of our give pool for our swimming program, academic center, of course, we've had on the docket for a while. The indoor facility, which not only helps football, of course, in the bad weather, but assists other programs that need indoor facilities during the winter months, baseball, soccer, golf, etc.
John, how surprised were you when you heard the news?
Well, pretty surprised because I heard it when you did. Bill, we'd never had those conversations, didn't even think about it, quite frankly, and we're all off doing our own thing. But very surprised. But Bill, when you look at Bill and what he's done and what he likes to do, it's another somewhat of a building program, and that's what he does, and that's what he's good at. So when you look back at it, yeah, that makes sense. And but wish him well. He was been a mentor of mine since my early 20s, and got the chance to work with him, and he's taught me a lot. He's helped me grow throughout all the years. So wish him well, and know he'll do a great job, and Nebraska's lucky to have them.
John, when you heard the news, did obvious candidates come to mind?
Well, no, when I first heard the news, it was like a text and was like, what are you guys talking about? So the first thing was, what the heck's going on? And I just come home from church and had the kids with me, but not really at that point. You know, when I heard the news and then let it settle in and kind of got through it all, and of course the donor calls and texts that you get, had a chance to sit down Sunday night and you know, didn't really say, hey, this is perfect or this is the one they're going after. And so this will be interesting, this process. And as we know, the last time the university's gone through an athletics director search in a traditional way was in 97, 98 when they hired Jim Sturk. So it's been a while, and the process of doing that, we haven't done that. So it'll be fun.
President Schulz, how do you reconcile this need to reassure coaches that their agenda is important to you with your concerns about the budget?
Yeah, I think you all have seen that we do have some budget challenges as an institution as a whole, and not just in athletics. And I would like to commend athletics for the great job that they've done over the last several years. We've reduced a $13 million annual operating deficit to, you know, right a little bit below $8.5 million, with a target this upcoming year of somewhere in the $7 million range. And athletics has done a great job of increasing revenues, decreasing expenses. And I think we had some general discussion about this at the all-staff meeting this morning that several people brought up, that, you know, that budget stuff always kind of hangs over our heads. I think one of my expectations from the new athletic director is really we need to continue to be aggressive on the revenue side. I mean, it costs us some amount of money to put out the competitive sports that we have at WSU and compete in the Pac-12. So there is some floor that you got to be at just to be competitive. And so in my discussion with the coaches, that this comes up, but a lot of them are concerned about, you know, are we going to get the right person to come in and provide the support that they continue to need to be successful from an athletic director. So today we heard some things about the budget, but that was not by any means the most significant conversations we had.
In your involvements with the NCAA and K-State, have you gone through any similar processes trying to find staff at this level?
I have. My first hire as president at Kansas State University was John Curry as athletic director, and John was the, you know, sort of a senior associate AD at Tennessee, University of Tennessee, and we both were. I was brand new president. He was a brand new athletic director, and so we sort of grew up together through that particular process, and had some similar challenges there with need to really enhance facilities, excellent coaches, but had to grow the revenue side quite a bit. And John recently took the AD job at the University of Tennessee and moved back there after 8 years at K-State. So I have had some experience going out and doing that and going through candidates, and that's why if I look at the opportunities that existed at Kansas State 8 years ago, and I look at the opportunities that we have here today, this is a really great time for an AD to come in here because there's not, you got to change this, or you got rid of this coach, or, you know, those kind of things. They can come in here, get to know the Coug Nation, get to know our alumni, go out across the state, and really spend the time getting in there without having to feel that there's something they got to do immediately. And that's really important for us moving forward.
Do you think this could be a situation where you present multiple candidates and hold forums like some schools have done in the past, or is this going to be a search process that determines a final candidate?
It's going to be a search process that we will introduce a final candidate who will be our next athletic director to the community. If we have desire to attract any sitting athletic director they are not going to want to have to go through a process where it's public, they're on campus, they're all that kind of stuff. Because guess what? They got to go back home and have their donors call them up and say, are you committed to our place or not? So we need to put ourselves in a position to be able to talk to sitting athletic directors about the great opportunities here. And that means that to get that kind of a pool, you've got to give up a little bit of that ability to come onto campus. So no, it'll be a closed search. It'll be very similar to the presidential search, where we announce, here's our next athletic director, and allow them to meet the community. That's the way that'll go.
Any additional questions in the room before we go to the telephone?
By all accounts, Bill, when he was brought on board, was a home run. With all the things that you just mentioned about where this institution is athletically, do you feel like you can hit another home run, or even now, for lack of a better word, hit a grand slam with the stars being in alignment at Washington State?
I think the pieces are all in place for us to have another pretty spectacular hire. We've hired 4 VP level folks over the last 6 months. Mary Jo Gonzalez is our new VP for Student Life, who's a Coug, and I can run through the list. Our latest one was Lisa Calvert, our new CEO of the foundation, who starts this week. Lisa ran the foundation at Texas Tech, ran the foundation at Purdue. I mean, just a stellar candidate. And guess what? All those VPs, as we hired them, said, I want to be in Pullman. I want to be part of Washington State University. I want to be part of the drive to 25 and keeping us moving forward. I think we're going to be amazed at the number of people that are interested in being our AD here. And I certainly hope that after a year or two, you pull me aside and say, wow, Kirk, what a star. That person is just what Washington State needed, and it's amazing to see where we are now.
This question for President Schulz and Mr. Johnson. What do you take from some of the backlash from the Cougar fans that happened on Sunday? Do you look at it as just them being very passionate, and what do you think about that?
So it's always easier to answer this like 48 hours later, right? I think I take it as passion and people caring a lot about the institution. And also, you know, there was some times where maybe we weren't as competitive on the field. Our facilities weren't in great shape. We didn't have coaches necessarily everybody could be proud of. And so folks see that progress, and the last thing they want to do is say, hey, I don't want to go back to the way we were some period of time before. So I will take the passion, which sometimes could be pretty direct and pretty critical, over, can you imagine if this occurred and nobody cared? You know, at that point, I'd say we don't have passionate fans. So while it can be a little rough on your family sometimes reading that stuff, at the same time, at the end of the day, I'll take passionate fans who want us to be really good, and I'm happy to be held accountable as president for folks to say, you want to be in charge, you want to be our president, here's your opportunity, show us what you can do. I think that's all part of these jobs today, so I'll take it every single time. In the immediate time it happens, maybe not so much, but I'm so glad we got people that care about Washington State and WSU athletics.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, John.
I echo what the president says, and our fan base is passionate. From their automobiles and their license plates to coming to games, and where we go around the country, and what you hear when you walk through the airport at Go Cougs, whether in New York or Amsterdam. Very passionate. And they're passionate because I think Washington State stands for doing things the right way and caring about our kids and our student athletes and our student experience. Our facilities are in the middle of campus. Those students grow up and they never leave that family. They still think of their great times at Washington State because of Pullman and what it stands for. Also, our fans are very passionate about that we have one of the best student-athlete experiences in the country. That is first and foremost what we're in this about. We're about kids, and how do we give them opportunities? Whether it's our nutrition program we develop, whether it's facilities, whether it's academic spaces, support staff, getting the best and brightest coaches. And they're passionate about that, and they care about that. And actually, I don't see it very much as backlash at all. I think hey, people care, And like the president said, if they don't care, then that's really a problem. And the texts and phone calls I got, geez, that's really too bad. Okay, here we go again, let's go get one. And that's, hey, let's move it forward. Let's not lose the momentum. That's what I'm hearing from those who were involved in the programs, fans, friends, et cetera, and our student athletes and staff.
What about to those that say that there was the reason why you left was because of a growing rift and divide between upper administration and athletics? Is there any way that you can address that and those people out there that say there were situations that led to him wanting to perhaps pursue another opportunity?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's anything I can say that is going to change some people's perceptions of that. I would say if Bill had left to take a kind of lateral job where everybody goes, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It looks like he was trying to get the first road out of Pullman. I think that would lend a lot more credibility to that. Nebraska is probably one of the top 5 AD jobs in the country. They've got a massive budget, and it's got great opportunities and has needed some stable leadership as an AD for a long time. So if somebody's going to leave WSU and they go to one of those particular kind of jobs, I'm still disappointed. But at the same time, I think people can look and go, yeah, I got it. I understand that. So that, to me, is the biggest difference. Bill and I, again, as I said earlier, we met every 2 weeks for about an hour. These were not hugely contentious meetings. I mean, sometimes we had disagreements on things, but I do that with everybody. But Bill was a passionate advocate for Coug athletics, and I expect the next AD is going to come into my office, and there's going to be some times we'll disagree on things, but I really disagree with the idea that there was some rift and Bill was really upset. He hasn't said that, and I just don't see any reason to continue for us to talk about that. So
Let's go to the phone. Staff, are you on the line?
Who?
Go ahead.
Kirk and John. This is for Kirk, I guess. Kirk, you said you want an experienced AD. What would you quantify as experience? Do you want somebody who has experience running a Power 5 athletic department, or would you be open to somebody even from, let's say, the FCS level of Division I athletics?
I think we want to cast a broad net, so I don't want to start saying that we have to have a sitting AD at a Power 5 school. I think we need to sort of see what's out there and what experience base that those individuals have. If I look at my former institution, they just hired an athletic director who had been the AD at North Dakota State, been very successful there, then spent some time at Iowa, and they hired Glenn Taylor as their athletic director. There's going to be some folks out there like that have got both sets of experiences, and I think that's what we're going to look for.
And also, I mean, John Johnson talked a little bit about, the baseball clubhouse and some of these facilities that you guys have kind of had on the docket for a while. Are you going to continue progressing towards the construction of these things in the meantime, or is all that put on hold until February 1st or whenever the new person is announced?
We have several of those projects that we're going to continue to raise money for. We're going to continue to figure out our construction schedule. But those projects aren't going to go away with a new athletic director coming in. I talked to the coaches today. We have made, and I'm making now, very public sentiments that the baseball clubhouse, the renovations to the pool, the academic center are things that we've been working on for some time. And I say we. This is not somebody else has been doing this, that we are going to work to complete. And it may take a little bit longer with a change in leadership, but those are things that are important to us. And as I talked to the other staff today and talked to Coach Leach, clearly that indoor practice facility is a critical next step for Washington State University athletics. And I want this to be one of the first things that our new AD spend some time working on and taking donors around and looking what other people have done and making sure that we're going to build something that be good for all WSU sports, that looks as good as our other facilities, and importantly, is functional for our coaches and our student athletes to help them be competitive in the Pac-12.
You mentioned Coach Leach too. I mean, how much input is Coach Leach going to have on this new athletic director, whoever you decide to pick? Because I know he's not on the search committee, but you said that his input is important to you.
Yeah, a couple things. One, I told Mike today that I'll continue to personally keep him updated as the process goes through. I'll certainly have conversations with him and several other key individuals when we get down to the end and have a couple people that we're looking at. And as I said earlier, Mike clearly said, hey, I'm here to help. This is your hire. I want it to be somebody that I can work with and we can be successful. And he just comes across today as very much of a team player who's committed to WSU and just wants us to find a really outstanding person to keep the momentum going. No individual is going to have sort of, well, I'm going to pick this person or that person. They're going to provide input, and we're going to choose in that particular way. Obviously, we need an athletic director who's going to continue to support our success in football and our coaching staff, and I think we'll make sure that's part of final criteria as we hire someone.
Okay, and for Mr. Johnson, John, do you, I mean, it comes across as a very selfless thing that you're taking this interim position, knowing that you will not be considered in the running for the full-time AD position. Do you intend to stay at WSU regardless of, you know, what happens or who's elected as the athletic director?
Yes, absolutely. You know, like I said earlier, I have passion for Washington State. Unfortunately, I wasn't a good enough player to play here, but 4 of my sisters went to Washington State, and 17 of 22 nieces and nephews went to Washington State, and came to football games as a kid with my father from Spokane. So we're happy, very happy here. My wife's the golf coach at the University of Idaho, and she has a lower handicap than I do. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And you want her on your scramble team. But yes, very happy. Hope to be able to stay on and plan to stay on and work with the new athletics director to make the program better.
Let's open up the phone for other questions. Anyone else on the phone?
Yeah, hi, this is for either of our speakers. What is the deadline for the athletic department budget deficit to disappear? I think there is one, but I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, we've worked, and that probably runs another 3 fiscal years. You know, when we're running somewhere around 13 million, you can say, well, why don't you just close it off in a year? If it was that easy, we would have already done it. So we've got several more years, and we're looking at some other revenue enhancements that we talked about today with the senior staff, and that we'll talk about with our new athletic director, in addition to private fundraising. So it's critical for me, for the university, for us to get back to the black, but not just to get back to the black, but get to the point that we're making sure that we're have additional dollars coming in to invest in coaches, student-athlete experience, and facilities.
Okay, and is the television package improving in the money it's bringing in, or is that still lower than projected to WSU in particular?
I think if you're referring to the Pac-12 network, the original projections made way before I was here was that that was going to be substantial revenue coming into the different members of the Pac-12. While we've exceeded some lower level expectations, I think the Pac-12 network is still not providing the sort of dollars that other schools in the Southeastern Conference or the Big Ten Conference get from their conference network. So this is a concern of the Pac-12 presidents, and I can tell you this is a large discussion point in meetings with the commissioner at every single meeting, because everybody needs these revenues to be competitive, not just within the Pac-12, but hey, the Pac-12 schools got to be competitive with the SEC, the Big Ten, ACC, and Big 12, and we're falling behind.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the phone?
Yeah, hi. My name's Parker Gabriel. I'm with the Journal-Star down in Lincoln. Couple quick ones for Mr. Schulz. Just generally speaking, what can Nebraska fans expect from Bill Moose as he gets settled in here in Lincoln?
Well, I think a couple things. Bill is a former football student athlete, and I think I've been to a couple games in Lincoln, and know that the football tradition that you have there with that stadium full of people wearing red, Bill is going to relate extremely well to your football fans, your donors, and I think the culture in the state. Eastern Washington reminds me a lot of Kansas and Nebraska, some parts of Oklahoma in terms of style. So I think people are going to, think after a month, is this guy grown up in the state? Bill did a tremendous job building our program here and putting us in a really positive spot moving forward. And I think he can do the same for the folks there in Nebraska.
And then last one is, you talked about the surprise of getting off the plane on Sunday. What was the last conversation, or when was the last conversation you had with Bill before that, and was he at the game at Cal on Friday night?
Yeah, so Bill and I talked at the game at Cal, and both of us were sort of focused on what we need to do to beat Colorado and our general disappointment after that particular game. But as I like to say, if we talked to a lot of our fans here and said we'd be 6-1 after 7 games, I think a lot of us would have felt really, really good given our schedule at the beginning of the season. So Bill and I were very focused on what we can do to make sure that we're ready to beat Colorado for homecoming.